I'm here to introduce Sandra Burga-Cisneros, who is going to be representing Peru. She was born and grew up in Lima, Peru. She was introduced in 1993 to the Urantia Book by a very special person. As a social educator and now currently a mindfulness teacher, she has been using the teachings of the Urantia Book in her daily life. After 23 years in Switzerland, Sandra recently moved to Israel, where she is working with her husband, Gabriel Reinberg, to disseminate the teachings. I had an opportunity to get to know Sandra as she was an associate trustee of Urantia Foundation. I appreciated her thoughtfulness and wonderful spirit. She is known as Sandra Reinberg in the rest of the world, but in Peru, she's still Burga-Cisneros.
So as you heard, I was born in Peru and was the first 22 years of my life in Peru. Then I moved to Switzerland, and now last August to Israel. First of all, I feel really blessed and really thankful to be here. Thank you to the organizers and the people who are really behind this symposium. And it's an honor to really be here and be representing my birth country, Peru. Behind this preparation and research of what I'm going to present to you, there are also three really wonderful ladies that are in Peru. My sister, Lourdes Burga-Cisneros, Cecilia Barreto, and Mayram Duran. They have supported me and really helped me to really put this together. So before I talk about the culture and beliefs in the country, I need really to go back a little bit and in history and also tell you about the geography of Peru so you can understand a little bit how it is in our country. So Peru is the third biggest country in South America after Brazil and Argentina. It has 26 regions around the country, and it belongs to the 12 mega-diverse countries in the world. And I'm going to explain a little bit about that. Peru has three major regions, and along the Pacific coast, there is the desert region, which is this one here, in which biggest cities are Lima, the capital, Trujillo, and near Trujillo there's also two other big cities, Chiclayo and Piura. Those are the biggest cities in this region. It has a long belt of really huge mountains, the Andes. In this region, the biggest cities are here, Cusco and Arequipa. And it has really the biggest part of Peru is the Amazonas jungle, in which capital or biggest city is Iquitos. Peru shares borders in the north with Ecuador and Colombia, in the east with Brazil and Bolivia, and in the south with Chile. And so you have an idea how big Peru is. It's about twice Texas, a little bit smaller than Alaska, so that you can compare how is it. So in this diversity, maybe before I go to the, sorry about that. So before I go to the history, the mega diverse of the country has really its advantage because it allows really the country to be is really rich in agriculture the most and in products that we have really all year because of the different possibilities of harvest in the different heights and different regions of the country. So we have really a lot of things. At the same time, it had a disadvantage that the communication between the desolated regions all around the country and the schools and the people who live really in these desolated regions is very, very difficult. So that's the challenge of such a mega diverse country. About the history of Peru goes 12 years back. It starts with the pre-Inca cultures, this one over here. I'm not going to talk about that, it could take a lot of time. It reached its peak in the mid of the 15th century with the Inca Empire. And with the arrival of Francisco Pizarro, the Spanish conqueror, in 1532, the Inca Empire rapidly falls. The Spanish people brought to Peru the Catholicism, of course, and they tried really to force the religion into the people at that time. Of course, they couldn't, with like in many other parts of the planet. So they allowed really all traditions and rituals from the indigenous people to blend with their religion. I'm going to be talking about that later on a little more. So to understand also the ethnical diversity of Peru, it's important that I explain you a few events of the history of Peru. First of all, it was the Spanish conquerors who arrived. The Inca Empire falls very rapidly. They had many reasons. One of them was at that time Peru in a civil war. And with the arrival of the conquerors, they really enslaved the indigenous people. They really believed the people not to have a soul. So they thought about them as savages and were enslaved. At the same time, they were also bringing black slaves from the colonies, other colonies, and from Africa, believing also the same thing. However, it was a very famous priest and social reformer, Bartolomé de las Casas, who fought really for the indigenous people, denouncing the abuses of them and making that the enslavement of the indigenous people could decrease, not disappear, but decrease. That that had as consequence that the black slaves increased, the black population, and the most in the area of the coast. The black people couldn't handle the hikes, so they were most in that area. That was around 1544. Around, in 1821, Peru reaches its independence, and it happened at that time that a lot of European people came to the country and stay also there. And in 1856, with the abolishment of slavery, the government allowed or opened the doors to a huge migration of Asian population. The most people from China and Japan, and Peru has one of the biggest China population of Latin America. So there's a lot of also Chinese people, mixed people in the country. So we could say that Peru is really a multi-ethical, multicultural country. It also faces challenges. Peru has, So from the 32 million inhabitants in Peru, 25% of the inhabitants are not Spanish-speaking people, being the second and third language Quechua and Aymara. Peru has 72 different native languages around the country, most in them in the jungle region. And 23% of the population are analphabets. Then it's important to say also that Peru has a massive centralization of population in the capital Lima, with 10 million inhabitants. And the other cities have between 500,000 and 1 million inhabitants. I'm going to show you after that a table about that. So it's important to also explain you why Peru has this centralization in the capital. So you can see here approximately the population in the cities I mentioned at the beginning. Lima, Trujillo, Chiclayo, Piura are in the coast. Cusco, Arequipa are those in the mountains, and Iquitos is the one in the jungle. So there were many reasons for the migration to the capital, but I think that the three major ones was the military government of 68, from 68 to the 75, where the president, the dictator, not the president, organized an agrarian reform. He took really, what happened is he took really from the rich hacenderos all the land and really put it in part and gave it to the workers. It was something that people liked a lot, the most the workers, because some of them were exploited. But what happened as repercussion is that the workers didn't know how to work the land without a leading. They didn't know, they didn't have the knowledge. So the land got lost. Also the farms with cows and cattle, they all got lost. So it was a huge crisis, and people really went to the capital to search for work and for better forms of life. The second reason is what we see all around the world, young people in search of better salaries. And the third, and probably the most important and really not so nice reason, is the time of the terrorism in Peru. So the terrorism was really a dark time in Peru. It was a movement that started in the 70s in the area of the jungle. It progressed really to the Andes and finally arrived in Lima around 1992. At that time, people were really ignoring the situation for the people living in the capital, until, of course, arrived there. And it had as a consequence 70,000 victims. From those victims, 70% were Quechua-speaking people. So this made really this huge movement to the capital. The main groups, maybe you heard about that, was Movimiento Revolucionario Tupac Amaru and Sendero Luminoso, Shining Path. I think it was very well known in many parts of the world. So people had to really search for safety and came to the capital. So then we could say, or I asked myself, how does a Peruvian look like? And it's really like this. And I really love this diversity. You see all these kind of people all around the country. So yeah, it's very nice. So about the religion, I told before that Catholicism was brought by the Spanish conquerors, and it's really very strong in Peru. We can say that the most Peruvian people are Catholic, or declare themselves as Catholics. We have a lot of people also from Christian evangelic churches. This isn't only evangelical, I think it's also other Christian churches. Then we have this group, which is also the group atheist agnosticism, but the ones also with no religion affiliation, which is the most in the jungle area. It doesn't mean that they not religious. It's just like that. And other would be Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, Shintoism. There's also Baha'i religion. And if we see also the census, like Catholicism has been decreasing, you see here. The Christian churches have been increasing, and I think that has really a reason, because Catholicism doesn't bring this really interaction or opportunity to participate in the mass. You say mass. So people are really searching for something else. I mean, those who are Catholic, grew up Catholic, they know they have to sit down, listen, repeat It's not such an interaction. Christian churches give that. They interact, they really sing together the praise and so on. Then here what I say is really also in the jungle region, people that are not affiliated because they're really live still in tribes and so on. Yeah, and this is also has increased a little bit. I think the most of the reason also is still migration. Okay, so what I said before about the traditions and rituals really blending with the Catholicism is called syncretism. Maybe you hear about the word, and we must say that the Catholic Church is still very strong because it has been subsidized, or is still subsidized. I think before the subsidization, how do you say subsidization happened in a voluntary kind of way. Since 1980, the government gives money to the Catholic Church, and that's about 2.5 soles per year. I don't know how much is that in million. Maybe you can make the yeah. So they sign an accord and concordato. So and they do it every year, and they're also extend from every kind of tax. They don't pay taxes at all. Exempt. Thank you. So yeah. Other beliefs, the other Christian churches have been asking this support since 2 years, being denied. So even if in the Constitution reads this, the Catholic Church is really important, but they may cooperate with others. I think that's not, well, the religion freedom is there. It's not that they oppose, but they don't support, right? So we have also a huge presence, presence of shamanism and healers. I mean, the traditions and the rituals from Peru are there. They're really blended in the Catholic Church. People may, if you ask around Peru, also in the Andes, people will say I'm Catholic, but they really go and make their rituals. I'm going to show you pictures after this. There is a huge presence of shamanism and healers all around the country, most in the area of rural areas and jungle. There also is increasing the activities related to Buddhism, like yoga retreats, vipassana retreats, meditation. Because I think Peru has many areas what are related to mysticism. So people go there and search for these things. New Age has been growing and mixing up with Andes cosmology and shamanism. So people that go in purpose for ayahuasca trips and the experience of these really shamanism rituals. Also an increase in holistic and healing centers. And there's also the influence from the black people in black magic and rituals that prevail, and they're also mixed up with Andes cosmology and so on. So, for instance, here, Eastern in Cusco, actually this is a Catholic patron of Cusco, the typical procession, but people really dress up with their typical clothes, and this is a very important instrument from the time of the Incas, the pututu, which was blown to announce a very important ceremony, or when they used to go to war, when somebody important was coming. So they still use these things. In the next one, what I said, people may go to mass. Mass. No, mass is something else. Because in German it's mess, I think so. So, you see here, people may go to mass, and they at the same time will go afterwards, take the 3 coca leaves, bless them and make a payment to the Pachamama, which is a very used ritual in Peru. The coca leaf is a sacred leaf. There's nothing to do with cocaine, that you know. It's important to say. And at the same time, they will go for the procession to the Apu, which is the guardian of the mountain, and would pay tribute, because they are very connected really to nature. The people over there are really very, very blended with these rituals. I think if I think in terms of personal religion, I think that the people who are the most open to those are the people in the rural areas and Amazon region, because they are the people, all the indigenous people, because they are really connected. Andes cosmology talks about, many people would say that there are a lot of gods, but actually they represent the divinity in each one of the things, in the water, in the mountains, in the sun, in the moon, and there's the huge Viracocha god, which is a representation of the all. So they think we are all connected and we're part of the all is part of us. So more or less like that. Here you see a shaman in the jungle region healing a girl. There's rituals of purification with the guinea pig and the egg. I don't know if you heard about that, but you can ask me afterwards. Symbolized is also the black magic, which is also very present from the time of the black people arriving to Peru. So, about the culture of Peru. There is a principle and a tradition in the culture of Peru of solidarity, and it's called the Aini concept. So in the times of the Inca, the people, the community which was the Ayu, was very important. People really lived in community, and the Incas, you really used to give land to the people to work the land. And the concept was, if somebody needs something, we just call a faena, and all the community will go and help this person to do the harvest, to build a house, whatever they needed. And then everybody would participate, men and women and children, in all kind of ways. And then they will not get something paid, so that would be to pay another time when they need it. So the concept is really today for you and tomorrow for me. And it's not a concept that it faded, it prevailed until now. So that's very strong in the rural parts of Peru. Maybe about the religion also, and about all these traditions. Of course, the cities have a lot of influence of Western culture. That is also important to say. So it's quite different. So this concept, you see it really. I mean, I can tell you an example. When we were with Gabriel in the last December, November in Peru, then we stopped really in Cusco in the land, and people were working there. And Gabriel asked, why is it that the people are not using tractors? So people really don't believe in that, because they are really connected. The Pachamama is alive, it's very important. They don't use tractors because they think it's going to destroy the soil. So they go by hand. They work with the bull, working. And how do they get all the land work? That was the question, Gabriel. It's impossible. There's so much land. Is this concept? People go work together and go there, work together. They let the land really rest and work on some other part of the land. That's really huge. So that's really one of the principles of the culture of Peru. And that's something also very important. In the Quechua language, the word poor, it means being alone. So even if somebody asks when they go there and they say, oh, what's such a poverty, they don't have anything, for those people it's not like that. They're really rich because they have each other. So that's also very important. And another thing relevant to say is that Peru was considered until a few years ago a poor country. So now it upgraded. Now it's a developing country. developed country is nice, but it has also disadvantages because there was a lot of money really coming to ONGs and to the government to help people because the help is still needed, and that's not coming anymore. So that's a challenge. So the government, we are a republic. Peru has been a republic many years. We have a dictator many years ago, but since then, the president is elected every 5 years, and the vote is an obligation. It's really an obligation. If you don't vote, you get a fine. It's not that they want to kill you or something, but you get a fine. So I think that people, or a lot of people, go to vote because they are not willing to vote, but they don't want to pay. So the kind of civic consciousness is not that oh, I really want to see which one is the best candidate and vote. Sometimes they vote blank. They don't know that the blank vote goes to the person who has the most votes. So it's really not that consciousness. And it's not a federal system, so if a president or someone is candidated in a region or in the country, has to have 51 or more of the whole votes. So most of the time when there are huge votes, then they have to go to a second round to have because there's a lot of parties also in the government. I think that there's also a huge problem about the corruption. Peru has a lot of corruption. I think that there are many reasons, but for me, in my personal opinion, one of the huge reasons is the time of terrorism. At that time, people will come really, and those generations of children grew up without the stability of the family. The family was very important, but the stability really fell down, and people were forced really to go for work. They organized themselves because women organized these groups, one woman watching a lot of children, but it happened that really they didn't get these values that they need to really be good persons. There's also a vicious circle going on. There has been corruption, and I think that young people also look up to this. And I think if really, like a very simple example, if a father is paying really some money to a policeman because he doesn't want to pay the fine, then the child is going to see that and do it again. So that's corruption is an issue. So the family is very important in Peru. It's a huge part of the culture of Peru. Families are huge. There's not the typical mother, father, siblings family. Family are uncle, aunts, from really not one generations, a lot of generations. It could be also friends that the family adopted, like part of their own family. So there's a lot being done in the family. Most of the leisure time of Peruvian people are spent in the family and with friends that they're very close, like family. And I think that Peru spends a lot of time, beside other things, I think it's a difference between really the cities and the rural parts. There's a lot of parties, and there's a lot of, in the rural parts, tradition and festivities, folk festivities. And in the coast also, there's a lot that people come together and really do parties. The really challenge about that is that if you see it generally, Peruvian like to drink. So that's, I think, something that is not that positive if they're overdue. Sometimes they do. The woman. The woman, even if Peru is a really machista country still, and we have sadly one of the most highest rates in femicide from South America. According to Peru's national statistic, around 32% of the women have experienced physical violence from a partner at some point in their lives. even if it's like that, because I saw it until end of March, really there were 45 women killed in Peru because of these reasons. So even it's like that, the woman in Peru is very strong. Is the pillar of really every home and the builder of many social structures that really have marked the progress in the lower classes all around the country and through history. Why that? Because the woman was so oppressed that they really tried to find a way to empower themselves, and they really did that through the discipline of solidarity. And they create really a lot of social organizations that nowadays are known from the government, but they did it on their own. Some of them are the Mothers Club since 1968, where the mothers really organized themselves to search for resources to feed themselves. I mean, I'm talking about the lower classes, right? Then there was a huge campaign, I remember that in the time of the terrorism, the glass of milk, where these mothers coming from really this huge migration from the rural parts really did or put the government under pressure, so they would really give them a glass of milk and a vitamin biscuit to the small children that were really starving, were really dying of malnutrition, and elderly people. And the Wawasi, it was an organization that I talk about that when the mothers came, this huge migration, they organized themselves so one mother could watch upon many children. And of course the popular dining rooms in 1960, they realized that putting the resources together and buying really all together, they could really feed themselves. So that goes until now. A lot of, I think the glass of milk not yet, but some of these organizations still until now. So the education, the education in Peru is obligatory. Every person should go to school and is expected to go to school 2 years preschool, 6 years primary school, and 5 years high school. That's the obligatory education. However, not everybody goes to the school, if we see the analphabetism. In the cities, most of the schools are private, and those schools are bilingual or multilingual. And in the other parts, the rural parts of the country, the government has found really a few alternatives and a few creative ideas to help the people. One of those is a law that came a few years ago that gives the right to every Peruvian to have a school in their own native tongue. So there have been really schools being created. You heard there are 72 native tongues plus Quechua and Aymara beside the official language, which is Spanish. And this was created because the government realized there's a lot of analphabetism because people were going to school and they wouldn't catch anything because it was in Spanish. They didn't even talk Spanish or understood Spanish. So there's also a very good project. It's called the Alternate Education for Rural Development. And this is a system that helps because they realize in the high school many kids in the rural zones were stepping up from school because they were needed in their land to work. The distances also from many schools, they have to work sometimes a lot of hours, even days, to go to school. So the government created this system where the kids will go 2 weeks to school. They will learn really also from the practical things of life in this way, the agricultural management and development, and they would go 2 weeks home to take these ideas home and put them in the practice over there. They also help the parents. The parents are part of the program, so they also give the parents this advice and so on. And the teachers also are special teachers in agriculture most of the time. Of course, they also learn the other things, but the focus is really on that. right? And it's a system that has been going on since 2002, and it already reached 11 regions of the country. Yeah. Also, the classes in that area are multi-age classes. Like, that's a challenge for the teachers because there are many, they have to really be very, very creative. And the government gives prizes and scholarships also for many schools, many projects in science or other things to improve or to motivate studies. Ethic, philosophy and logic thinking were taken from the curricula 15 years ago. But they are going back this year. They realized that was a huge mistake. We can imagine what was the problem, that a gap in really, this generation isn't really able to, or it could help for self-development, self-reflection and so on. I had in my time philosophy and logical thinking and ethics at school. Religion is considered an optional but not mandatory. But there are a lot of schools that are really that have religion, even if it's not obligatory. But there's the freedom to say I don't go to sometimes, because there's a lot of schools being led by the Catholic Church or by the Jesuits. They really invest and give a lot of opportunity also to low classes so to study in that way. So, yeah. Art. Art in Peru is very important and very appreciated. And there's really a huge vast of a lot of combinations of art, the pre-Columbine art, the art mixed with the time of the Spain people. There's also the art in the cities, of course, is connected to many kind of art, paints and museums and opera and also on. And I think that the most famous and the most really appreciated, that represents the popular classes that are the majority of the country, are folklore and craftsmanship. That's very important in Peru. Since the time of the pre-Incas and Incas, people really express themselves through craftsmanship, through their daily instruments. In pre-Inca culture, Inca culture, you'd see the pottery was art, the instruments they used to work the land, the instruments they had in the temples. So everything was really, really art. And I think that is still very present in that part. Music and dances are also very, very present. Of course, in the coast is mixed with most the Afro-Peruvian inheritance, and in the Andes also there's some, and there's also a mix with the dances and all the music from the Spanish people that came many years ago. So it's really, really. And that's very important to say also, because that's what I could say from Uganda. There's a lot of oral tradition. So people really, in the times of the Incas, the Inca, with this, it means the unique, it was the king. It's not that the Inca people were all Incas. The Inca was really the king. So that the Inca and the nobility, the priests and all the people who belonged to the upper class of the Inca Empire, they could read and write, but the lower classes, the popular classes, couldn't. So the tradition is really oral, and that prevailed. Until now, there are a lot of people really communicating like that. There are also, for instance, a city in the north from Cusco that they design all the family stories. So that's I think how the people really also express very much. There's a lot of history. Dissemination of the Urantia Book. There is an Urantia Association Peru since 2017. However, the Urantia Book is really present since its publication in 1993, in Spanish publication, and there's a lot of people, a lot of readers that since then are really working for the dissemination of the book in many kind of ways. Since the association contact at that time when it was built 30 readers, now there are 140 something, I think, contacted. I think there's a more of readers around the country, that because it's sometimes very difficult to contact all people. And they have been really doing a lot of things about the dissemination. There are study groups since 1996. There have been publications of articles in different European journals, publication and dissemination through secondary work, books. There was in 2003 this huge game that is a table game that is based on the Urantia Book, and it's really very, very nice to play. There's dissemination. There has been a lot of dissemination through radio also. Some TV shows, but the most radio. Many years ago there was the Club of Discernment, I think. There was, after the Anti-Feel fair last year in Lima, where a lot of young people went there, there was this radio show where young people were connected, and the book was introduced in many, many ways. So, and 10 people really were attending regularly. There has been also dissemination in social work, in prisons, in schools, and with women in disadvantage. There's a huge project going now with a native woman from the Amazonas, where Urantia Book readers are helping them to go over. They are in Lima because they lose things in their own space, so they are helping them to sell the things, craftsmanship things, and so on. There has been participation of UB in UB congresses, workshop monitors, and lecturers, and the participation in the fairs also, and also publications in the Urantia social networks. The Urantia Peru has a plan how to go on. I tried to summarize that because they had a nice table, but it wouldn't be, you couldn't understand that, so I so the plan is really to get from the provinces, from the regions of Peru, the capital of the regions, to finally reach the capital, Lima. Why start in the regions? Because I think through syncretism, the receptivity is wider and higher. So people really in this part of the country really, I think, are open. I think that most of the people, I don't know if I mentioned before, I would say that those people are the ones who really could see religion as personal experience and be open up for that. I think about the capital also, but there are some people that could say that they are open for something else on the superficial kind of way. If you ask them, they're going to say Catholic, really Catholic. So, because that's also something that is like a status thing, most in the higher classes and the politics. You know, I'm a good Catholic, so even if it's superficial. So they have planned to go from mouth to mouth because of this kind of oral tradition in families through the woman. I think why the woman, I think Urantia Association from Peru thinks that the values have to be uplifted in the family and through young people and also parents to be. But now the focus is on the woman because of the vulnerable situation of the woman in the country. They really want to help women to empower themselves, to be stronger and go on. So yeah, the family meetings and social organization in small groups, then concentration of young people. They want to go to universities and education centers. So the universities are open to every kind of books, you know, that they accept them. There is a plan to go to the faculties of theology and philosophy because they think that they could be a book with the like saying it could be a book for research. So it is a book for research also as well. So in participation in book fairs in Lima and in Cusco. Until now it was in Lima, but they realized Cusco has really a very, very huge visitors from all over the world. It's really a cosmopolitan city. Also people from all over the world living there. So this year the fair in Cusco is very important. The participation, continued participation in radio with programs based on the Urantia book. And there is a radio, Radio Urantia. I don't know if you heard about that. It's a project that started with a guy, an idea from a guy in Costa Rica, and it developed to a very huge thing because he realized people were really connecting, and he searched for help. So there are many people in many countries, Urantia readers helping for the project, and then organize this radio that goes 24 hours. So people all around the world hear the programs. It's not a radio that you at one time. Is something that goes over and over with different programs. So people, Peru has a program is called the Awakened Woman, inspired in the last Congress. It was a workshop done with a woman with the help of Lynn St. Pierre, and it really had a lot of echo in the woman, so it created this radio. And there are this program, and there are also people that are not Urantia readers that participate. So this program is also a way to connect to people that want to help and serve, because a Peruvian woman, Cecilia Barreto, has experience in radio, so he really prepares people or help prepare people that want to do programs, help them really with the editing, how to register the whatever they want to do and so on. So it's something really is growing more and more. At this time it's not online, it's going to be online on the 17th of April. They are improving everything. So there is a huge project also, Casa Urantia, which is, I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to come back to that after I explain you the challenges. Even if there's a lot of Urantia readers and a lot of people really participating, the people that really commit is not that much. I think that we see that everywhere. So yeah, there is a lack of commitment, and Peruvian people are really enthusiastic, really enthusiastic, but then at the time, you know, sometimes a lack of seriousness, yeah, in some other areas. So that needs to improve. The geographic challenges are a huge problem because from the jungle it needs 1.5 day by boat and car to arrive to the capital. From other areas, one day, and the conferences are being held in the capital because 76% of the Urantia readers are in the capital. So it makes sense that it's been held there, but then they have to do the conferences in holidays, and that increases the cost. Also, the financial aspect is a problem. Urantia Peru has a few readers that collaborate, that have the possibilities to collaborate with the association, but the last activities from the last year has been really held because of the generous donation of UAI and other associations from other countries or other readers, foreign readers. So that's an issue. We need really the financial help. The helping possibilities, I wrote it like that because sometimes it's not really clear where to get the help. For many in Peru, they say that they had like they needed some help, but they didn't know where to go. And they need really the transparent communication between US and Latin America, because US has this experience of conferences, of study groups, and the communication, they feel like it's not really transparent and it's not flowing. That's what I was told. And of course, we have commit, and we were chosen to host the next UAI International Conference in 2021 in Cusco, and we're really guaranteeing the well performance. The huge, not a huge, but a good team is already working on that. So yeah, this is Peru, and I would like to go to Casa Urantia back, because I'm going to show you a video after that, but I want to tell you about it a little bit, because the video is in Spanish. We didn't manage to put subtitles or translate it yet. So Casa Urantia is a project that is created to disseminate the teachings of the Urantia Book in an ambitious, desirable, and fully feasible. The project is located in the city of Cusco because it's a historical and cosmopolitan place and the site of one of the 7 new wonders of the world. So it's considered one of the global centers of spiritual searching. People receive 1.5 million tourists, 2.5 million tourists per year. And out of these travelers, 52% are millennials, average age 28, 23% X generation, average 42, 21% the baby boomers, average 54. And a very interesting fact is that 22% of these really tourists arrive to Cusco and stay in an inner spiritual searching. They really want to do the trips around that and have these experiences. Additionally, there are many foreigners who live in the city for a long time. And there are also a significant number of foreign people that go to the city in order to learn Spanish or acquire experience of serving in a volunteering, staying in Cusco for an average of 6 months. So the aim of the project is work together with the people in the area, both citizens and foreigners, focus in a constant campaign to disseminate the teachings. And the efforts are based on a strategic plan that includes create new study groups, conducting workshops, giving lectures, and giving lectures in different parts of the regions. And the activity will contribute to the planning of the UAI International Conference in 2021. That is going to be held in the Sacred Valley of the Incas. Casa Urantia is a self-sustaining project thanks to the services that we provide to the visitor who want to experience mystical, spiritual tourism with hands-on approach and also by teaching Spanish. However, this cannot be an effort of only one person or organization. We need volunteers who, in addition to believing in the Father, are willing to become involved in Casa Urantia, a project for all us in benefit of everyone. The certain author of the Urantia book remind us that 132 of the races Andites embarking in a fleet of small boats from Japan eventually reached South America and by intermarriage with a native of the Andes established the ancestry of the later rulers of the Incas. In the original Melchizedek plan for the improvement of the Urantia races, it had been stipulated that 1 million of the pure line descendants of Adam should go to upstep the red men of the Americas. The evolution plan is still underway in South America, from Cusco to the world. So I'm going to show you the video, so try to remember these words while you read it.
Okay. You're all in the way.
Esta es Casa Urantia. Es un proyecto de diseminación de las enseñanzas del libro de Urantia, ambicioso, replicable y absolutamente posible. Se localiza en la ciudad de Cusco, en Perú, en un lugar histórico, cosmopolita, considerado como el próximo centro de búsqueda espiritual del mundo. Se preguntarán por qué allí. El Perú recibe 2,5 millones de turistas al año, de los cuales el 56% de estos viajeros son millennials, es decir, jóvenes de 28 años en promedio. El 23% son de la generación X, que tienen aproximadamente 42 años. Y el 22% de los viajeros son los baby boomers, que tienen 54 años. Lo más interesante es que el 22% de turistas vienen en viajes espirituales de búsqueda interior y permanecen entre nosotros entre 10 y 18 días. ¿Pero qué esperamos lograr? Trabajar conjuntamente con la gente local, nacional y extranjera, haciendo campañas de diseminación de las enseñanzas del libro de Urantia de manera constante y focalizada, creando nuevos grupos de estudio, dando talleres y charlas en distintos lugares de la región. Toda esta actividad servirá para contribuir en los previos de la Conferencia Internacional de 2021 a realizarse en Urubamba, en el Valle Sagrado de los Incas. Casa Urantia es un proyecto completamente autosostenible, gracias a los servicios que brindamos de turismo místico espiritual y vivencial, así como las actividades de enseñanza del idioma español. Pero esta tarea no puede ser el esfuerzo de una sola persona o de una organización. Necesitamos de ti, tú como voluntario, que además de creer en el Padre, estás dispuesto a apostar por Casa Urantia, un proyecto de todos y para todos. El libro de Urantia nos recuerda: 132 miembros de esta raza andita que se embarcaron en una flotilla de barcas pequeñas desde el Japón, llegaron hasta América del Sur y uniéndose en matrimonio con los nativos de los Andes, establecieron el linaje de los futuros emperadores de los Incas. Acompáñanos, Casa Urantia te espera.
Is there any conflict or tension between the various ethnic groups or races in Peru?
So the question is about tensions between the various ethnic groups in Peru.
I think that the timing of the tourism show that there really is a tension, but not tension because there between them is more that there's not equality. Even if the Spain people came 500 years ago, the European, the people that come from European countries are really sometimes discriminating the indigenous people or also the black people in Peru. So that's an issue. It's changing, you know. During the, I think with the years it changed a lot. It has been worse before, but it's still kind of discrimination around. Yeah.
What is the percentage of Chinese people you said?
It's about 2%.
Oh, it's 2%.
Yeah.
I thought you said quite a bit.
Well, it's quite a bit in comparison to the rest of Latin America.
Oh.
Yeah, but not, yeah, in
And
the
what is
country.
the population of the whole country?
32 million. Yeah.
So the question was about the percentage of Chinese
Yeah.
in the country, and it was
Yes.
2%
2%.
and the number.
Yeah.
You said it's the third largest. Is it the third largest, you said?
It was
In West, in South
Third largest
America?
Yeah.
Size of the country.
32 million inhabitants, and 10
Popu-
live in Lima.
With the question was about how many were in Lima, in terms of the population of the country and the size of the country?
32 million inhabitants and 10 million live in Lima.
So it's 1/3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
How many of the younger generation do you think are actually going to have church?
Question is about how many of the younger generation have been attracted to the Catholic Church or to religion in general.
I think that the Catholic Church for the younger generation, it means more tradition. Like people really are baptized because their parents are Catholic. They do the first communion. I don't know, it's called like that here. They do the confirmation at some point because all the peer group is doing that. So I think not that it's not about really the faith more than the tradition. However, there are some people that it depends, I think, most about the parents. If really the parents are living, there are some really Catholic people living the faith really very strong and applying that every day, then the children or the young people are going to do that as well. But it's not something that is attracting. Actually, the affiliation to the Catholic Church is decreasing since 93, I think was the first census. So I can, you see that? Right. Yeah. But I think also in terms of young people, I think that young people are searching for a purpose. They are in search of something more, and they go really to this esoteric, new age experience. There's also a lot of willing to experience something mystical. So there's also a lot of people that go and they want to go do this experience in ayahuasca trips or things like that, right?
So how many readers do you have in Peru? Are they all in Lima mostly?
Question is about where the readers are mostly.
Yeah, most of the readers are in Peru, in Lima. 76% of the readers are in Lima. Lima has 4 study groups. And I think it has been registered until now 144 readers officially. Yeah.
And are they mostly older people or mixed younger people? Or question about the age.
Yeah. No, there are really also young people. I think that the majority are women.
One of the reasons is because it's exotic and mystic place where people goes for seeking and searching. What about contaminating? The Urantia Book goes exotic and things deal. So how do we handle that?
The question is about how do we handle bringing the Urantia Book, if I've got this correctly, bringing the Urantia Book into an area where people are searching for mystical experiences. Yeah.
Do you mean the people who are visiting Peru, or do you mean the people who are living in Peru?
No, the people who we want to achieve with the Casa Urantia. We say that's going to be launched in Cusco, because Cusco is a place where people, even those living there or those visiting there, are seekers. They are exotics, they are mystic. And then it's an opportunity to launch the Urantia Book there. So how do we handle that? Because Urantia is not mystic or exotic or...
The comment is related to how do we handle, as Urantia Book students and readers, a situation where people are coming looking for mystical experiences, but they're coming on a spiritual search. So how do we balance that opportunity and really benefit from them? Is that correct?
Yeah, basically my concern here is people getting in touch with the Urantia Book with the idea that this is something mystical, something exotic.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
So how we handle that? Now, I know the project, for instance, for sure will have some cares to prevent things like that. I understood from the video and what you said that one of the reasons for launching it in Cusco is because of that. So maybe I'm wrong, but the environment, which is mystical, should be propitious for the Urantia Book. And this doesn't sound very very good for me. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think it's. Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a challenge for sure. But I think that people, in my experience, when I have been in Cusco, and I have been many times there, the last time 2 months ago, is that there is really a lot of people that go in search of this spiritual experience, but what they get is something that is not really real. What they get is something that is really mixed up with a lot of shamanism, and at the same time, I heard from shamans there, from people that are really living their traditions and connection to Mother Earth, to the Pachamama, that they have corrupt themselves because of money. So they are not really happy with what they're doing. So I think that's an opportunity to give people something else. It's not, of course, going to take the other people who really look for this mystery and this, like these experiences and so on. Ayahuasca trips are going to keep going, and all these things are going to keep going. But I think that if there's something that resonates also with the local people about spiritual experience, is the Urantia Book. Because the Urantia Book talks about the universe, talks about this connection really with the Father, and in Andes cosmology it's the same. It's called another way, but it's really the same. It resonates really with the people there. And I think also the people that go there, they really want this spiritual experience. It's not much of mysticism. I think that that is misunderstood what a spiritual experience is, because they hear about these ayahuasca trips and so on. So I think it's gonna be okay, and it's gonna be something that is not about only giving this kind of experience. It's gonna be also about mixing with the population there and do some social work with the people, get to know the people, So and the first organized trip is going to be with young people starting on May. So people has been also being connected really. When I was there 2 months ago, we connected to a guy which is not affiliated to any agency. He's doing trips, and he, from those casualties of life that are really not casualties, he was talking about what he was doing in these trips with these people, and he said that sometimes he talked about really the meaning of what was behind this really Inca culture, of spiritual, of connection with the earth, with the Father, and really we got in contact with him. He's gonna lead this first experience, and of course it's gonna be a try, We're gonna learn about it, but I think that I really truly believe it's a good project. And I give you the explanation in English, and if you want, I have also a dissemination plan complete for those who are interested in knowing more, what is really the whole plan has been developed until now. It's a lot of effort and work behind that. It's not such a simple thing.
You introduced the unity among the Peru people. I like the idea that they are together, but when you talked of battering women and the death of women. I'm wondering, there is unity here, and we have battering women. What's happening?
So the question is about when you talk about the unity and the value of women, how do you understand the abuse of women that's going on there? Is that correct?
Yeah.
I think that's a very, very sad and huge issue in Peru. Even if the woman is strong, as I said, and even if the woman is acting, I think the Peruvian woman is not a submissive woman. The Peruvian woman is really a strong one. It fights even if he's being beaten, even if she's defending herself. But I think that the problem of really femicide in Peru is because of the education, lack of education. Even if you saw there is education in Peru, but education is also something that is connected also to the money of the people in Peru. And it is true that even if education is obligatory, you have seen is 25% of the people that are analphabet. And this culture of really machista, that the man also needs to, show this macho side of him, is a reality. And I think that the only way to really overdo that is education. And this is happening slowly. There's also a huge campaign going on, something similar. It's not the Me Too, but it's a Ni Una Más, not one more, going in Peru, very strong, that really women coming together to really find solutions about this. So, yeah, it is an issue.
I heard you said before, Sandra, that there were more women than readers. Why is this?
The question is about why are there more women that are doing, more women readers. Oops, sorry.
I think it has really with the cultural part of the country, as you saw. That's why I wanted to present the woman like that. A woman is really strong in the country, and the woman, I think, without being really against men, don't understand me, please, wrong. I think that the woman in Peru is really the actor, of things. When there's problems, when there's something really that doesn't work, there are not the men, though there are some men, of course, but the majority of people acting are the women. And I think in terms of the Urantia movement, it reflects that, it's the same. So the majority, there are men, of course, Urantia readers, there are men also collaborating and being a part of responsibility in Urantia Association, but the main or the majority of, for instance, now the team organizing the Congress are women. Yeah.
What is the percentage of pure-blooded European or Spanish, the mestizos, the mixed race, and the Indians?
The Indians are about the 68% of the population in Lima. I would say 26% are the European. Then the 2% are the Asian, and like the same, about the same, the black population. But in the 26% of the European, there's also the mestizos. So there's no I wouldn't say there's a pure European or the pure, maybe you say in the rural regions, in the Andes, 95% of the population are indigenous, that you could say. But there's a lot of mix. There are black people with Chinese people mixing, and indigenous with white and with Chinese, and it's really a beautiful mix of diversity. Yeah. And there's also, of course, places where only black people are. For instance, the black population really in south of Lima, in 2 towns where you go and mainly all the population are black. So there are also the Chinese colony, of course, the Japanese colony. and so on. That also is a reality. But there's a lot of mix. And I think that if I make a comparison what was when I left Peru 23 years ago, now is changing in this also discrimination way of being from the Peruvian. There are more people really mixing and more people being really tolerant and not, am I talking about the people, you know, from the high classes, that most of them are the white people. That's the reality. But it's not anymore. There are mixing, there are people coming. Before, when I was a child, almost all the government used to be white people. You wouldn't see any indigenous people or black people, or then it came really a change. We had a Japanese president, was Fujimori, yeah, in the 19th. That was the guy who helped to finish with terrorism.
The political situation, my sense is Brazil and Venezuela have very dictatorial political ideologies in play. How is it improved?
In Peru, it's not like that. We had a president elected. The president is elected every 5 years, and he cannot repeat the mandate until it rests for another 5 years and can recandidate. In the time of Fujimori, in the 90s, when there was this terrorism time, very hard and very, very, very difficult in the country, Fujimori came and dissolved the Congress, something that it was not seen in the whole history of Peru, because you cannot do this legally unless it's a war, or it's really. But he did it with the support of some countries and the military. It was an auto. We said punch when the military government comes. It's a punch. So it was an auto punch. So he dissolved the Congress to create, because the Congress was made of parties that wouldn't allow him to do anything. So he did that, and he was re-elected because he changed the constitution. But well, at the end it went bad because I think corruption got into his head and it didn't work. Nowadays there's a lot of corruption. There was a president elected what was associated with this crisis from Oberderg, in a Brazilian guy who was also corrupt in South America, so he has to step off. And the actual president is the vice president, who actually was not elected from the people, but he's doing really very silently a lot of good things. So we have hope. And of course, like every Latin country is not stable because of the reasons I said before. There's corruption, we don't know what can happen. There has been president elected that left the country really bad, and after 15 years were re-elected, like Alan Garcia. I mean, political speaking is now stable, but we don't know how long.
What about the immigration policies in Peru? Are those an issue?
Now with Venezuela it is. There was a huge migration from Venezuela people, of course, and in South America actually people can travel with just ID. Not more than Venezuelan people. They need a passport. So because there was a lot of people coming. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people also from Europe going to Peru. When people arrive to the places like Cusco, Cusco is a city, it's a beautiful city. A lot of people stay there because really they like this cosmopolitan kind of way. Cusco is a city that is not conventional. It's really very, very alternative. So people who really like to live relaxed, no worries about, like people also from Lima are moving to Cusco. The capital now is like, people are starting to go out of the capital because the traffic and so on is really terrible.
So the question, you said that the government was giving a lot of money to the Catholic Church, and I was wondering, is there a separation between state and church, or are they more or less mixed together?
So the question is about the separation between church and state, given that the government gives a lot of money to the Catholic Church.
I have it here. Yeah. I would say that there is a separation. It's not that the Catholic Church, like before, has something to say about the laws, but it has a lot of influence. That's the truth. So the Catholic Church is really present in the ceremonies. Of course, there's a lot of really traditional festivities that are really a part of the Peruvian tradition, like processions and in Easter. And in those moments, the Catholic Church is there to lead the ceremony, to give a blessing. But it's not like here in the United States that the government will say, God bless Peru, or no, that not.
Do you have any political party which are also religious, like Christian?
There are, but not the major ones. There are small ones, yeah.
Is there any native Christian religion, that started in Peru outside the Catholicism or United States? Indigenous Christian.
Question, is there any native Christian religion that started outside of the...
No, inside.
Inside Peru, but outside of aside from the United States or another country? Any that originated in Peru?
That from Peru went outside to other parts of the world?
Basically homegrown Christian religion.
Not specifically Peruvian, I would say no. There's a lot of Christian, like the Adventists of the 7 Days, the evangelical churches, Jehovah Witnesses, those, but nothing that, because Peru, the ones who really are the traditional beliefs are really affiliated or ligated in connection with the nature, with the earth. In the jungle as well, it's in the jungle there are tribes that don't even meet Catholicism because they are isolated. They just follow their own, beliefs and traditions. And the people from the rural parts, they declare themselves and consider themselves Catholic. If you ask them, they're going to say, I'm Catholic. But at the same time, they go to the healer, they pay tribute to Pachamama, they go and pray to the apple, to the river, yeah.
Most of the books that the readers are using is Spanish and English, or more of Spanish.
The question is about what books. It's okay. What books most of the readers are using, Spanish or English, or both?
Spanish. People read in Spanish. There's not a lot of people speaking English because English is getting, it's changing. There's a lot of people that want because they have more opportunities if they learn a second language. But really the access to a second language or to a bilingual or multilingual school is when you have money. So most of the people read in Spanish. And I think also, the Peruvian people, because there's a lot of analphabetism, they like also the stories. They like the word to word. They like to be told, to be, if you really want to reach people in Peru, you really, they say there's a word, calentito y rápido, so warm and quickly. So if you can engage them with a story, with something, verbal, and meeting them, it's better. Even if they like to meet together, there's also virtual study groups because of the distances and internet also. I didn't talk about that. Internet, there is internet in the cities, but in the desolate regions, or sometimes it's an issue because sometimes the connection just is not there. In Cusco, I had many challenges with the connection. The storm and the connection was waves, things like that. So, but internet is considered now a tool to out of poverty because most of the young people have try to have a telephone with internet. They are really researching. They are educating themselves through internet and through that. So it's also.
Is there any way of knowing what percentage of the readership in Peru found the Urantia book through the books of J. Benitez, the Caballo de Troya?
I could not say percentage, but I could say that a few, but not like in Spain a lot. There was before the book was published, there was a person, the person who introduced me to the Urantia book, doing a lot of work in countries in South America, also in Peru, disseminating really the principles and values of the book. And I think the people who got touched by this person got to the book through him. So, but there's a few also through J. Benitez. Mm-hmm.
Is the conference going to be in Spanish? Is it going to be translated or?
It probably is going to be translated. We are working on that. The thing is that we really want a lot of people, local people, to attend the conference, and of course this lot of local people, the majority don't speak English, but we're gonna find the form to do it, to put it available, because it's an international conference. I think it has to be in English, but it's gonna be, if it's only in English, it's gonna be totally translated to Spanish. If it's gonna be speeches in Spanish, it's gonna happen the opposite. That is, yeah, because we want also people from there to participate also in speeches and so on.
How many people you think read the Urantia book in Peru?
Question is the numbers that read the book in Peru.
I think that registered readers until now are about 150, I think. But I think there are more, because the book is really spreading. I mean, in the last book fairs, people were amazed from really what they heard about the Urantia book. There were a lot of Urantia books being sold and also gave as in a low rate, because that's also an issue. Books are not available there, very, very, very expensive. The association is working now, because it's an association now, is going to be exempt of taxes.
Tax exempt.
In the books, so we're going to maybe have the possibility to get the books cheaper. But yeah, that's something that we need really to have more books. Also for the Cusco Fair, which is going to be an international fair, it's going to be people from all around the world. We will need books.
Just a follow-up, in terms of the study group, how do you organize it and how many study groups?
There are 4 study groups in Lima. Mm-hmm. There's 1 study group in Cusco now, brand new. And there are 2 study groups, virtual study groups, that go on, like not all the time. They are organized like topics about that, and people who want to participate. And I think there is one going virtual for the people who cannot, because even if Lima, 76% of the readers are in Lima, but Lima is huge. And really the distances, even if there are not huge distances, but the traffic is a catastrophe, horrible.
So maybe one more question and then we'll take a break.
Just wanted to know when, sorry, was it this term?
You can combine your questions.
Just to know when the first book appeared in Peru. When was that? 10 years ago, 20 years ago?
When was the first book appearing in Peru is the question.
In 93. When the year that was published.
Okay. And caught, and then we'll...
You talked about a game.
Yeah.
Could you tell us more about this?
The game is called Momentum. It's a game that a team of 7 persons created based on the principle and values of the Urantia book. and other things, not only the Urantia book. And it goes like it's like a game who allows a search of yourself and all the things that you need to grow, practically. The game goes like many people can participate. You get a card, then you get questions. Then all the game is about answering questions and going back, you know, to the childhood, to your inner self. It's very nice and very interesting to play. It is available in Spanish because it was published and it's still being sold in Peru. It was translated in English and in German, in other languages. I'm not aware of how many other ones. But then the financial meanings were missing to really, you know, publishing in other countries and so on.
So thank you. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.